Hey, is that the sock? Tune in to Isolation Nation with Michael Landsberg as he stays cooped up and you see signs of his stir craziness, and he talks to Mark Tewksbury, Olympic gold medal winner. Wait, did he win a gold? I know he won some kind of gold, or some kind of award. I don't really give a damn about the Olympics, but I'm sure he's going to be a very great guest.
It's a nation in isolation. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. Be sure to tear along the perforation. Mark Tewksbury, he's on the show. He won the gold for the backstroke, don't you know? The backstroke is hard to do, 'cause you can't see where you're going to. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. I'd like to teach farmers about irrigation. Yeah.
Oh my, it's been a crappy couple of days. Worked out okay, but my dad's been sick, and I was deathly afraid of having to take. I'm not trying to bring down the show. I was deathly afraid of having to go into the ER with him, and all the things that could happen. You go in a little bit sick, and you end up dead with this virus. But when I hear Sean Cullen sing that song that he sings every day in his own special way, it just makes me so happy. And you know what else makes me so happy? You. Mark Tewksbury. In my career, there's not a person that I have met who I didn't know before, who came from a totally different world than I did, who has totally different interests in many ways than I did, that I have liked more than you. Good to see you, man.
Thanks, Michael. We've had some amazing television moments and real life moments, but we're especially good in this format. So I'm really happy to be with you today.
And how you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's fun to be on your show and actually stop to think a little bbit about how I am 11 weeks in, or whatever the official date is. And I have to say, I'm in Calgary. I used to have a place. I still have a little apartment in Toronto. I used to crisscross the country. And so that stopped for the last 11 weeks. And I've never been grounded this long. And I have to say, I'm one of the people that likes it more than dislikes it.
Okay. I want to come back to that, because I like it more than I dislike it. Like you say, is very rare. But I wanted to show people the 92 race. Unfortunately, it's an Olympic race, right? So as you know, it's like, you can't play. You can't just decide, this is not in the public's possession or the public realm. So what we had to do is we had to find other video and other audio. So here's the 1992 100-meter backstroke final with Mark Tewksbury. Everybody in Canada cheering Tewksbury behind at the turn. Let's pick it up there. Roll it, Phil.
Rouse has phenomenal turning ability. He's out in front. Mark has to play catch up again, but he's good at that. He's got to pick it up right now.
We are 25 meters left. The men's 100-meter backstroke. It is between Rouse and Tewksbury. Here comes Mark Tewksbury. To the final 5 meters, Rouse and Tewksbury. It's gonna go to the wall, and on the wall, Tewksbury. He's done it. Olympic record.
Woohoo! 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 Woohoo!
That was good. That was really good.
Yeah, we had fun with that. It's funny, the woohoo came out woo-ho, woo-ho, woo-ho. But, I had a great time watching it, to be honest with you. I mean,
I was worried. I just saw traffic at first. I was like, phew, we got to the backstroke.
Yeah, we got to it. And I transcribed the race. So what Siri said, or the other versions of Siri, was actually what Byron McDonald and who did the
Rob Folds for CTV.
Right, and Rob Folds. It was like the actual call. So that was 1992. Hard to believe that was 1992. But, here's, one of the beauties of it is that you're forever a gold medalist, right? Like, how many times have you been introduced on TV shows, on radio shows, on stage, in a million different forms, and you're always gold medalist Mark Tewksbury. So my question then is, what would the second line be for you? Gold medalist Mark Tewksbury. What would you put next as a description?
Probably like humanitarian advocate, one of those, you know, somebody who stood up for things.
Like what?
Sorry?
Like what?
Well, you know, speaking obviously about my sexuality back in the 90s when it wasn't so cool to do so, being one of the first.
Wait, one second here. What's the deal with your sexuality? I've known you for. Are you gay?
Well, we're gonna talk about that. Yeah, we're gonna actually, because that's gonna link to a little bit of mental health stuff later.
Yeah.
But for sure, and listen, like, not afraid to speak out against the International Olympic Committee and ethics and doping and whatever it might be. I mean, it's just the kind of guy I am that I'm really proud of.
Okay, so let's take your statement just before we watched the race and break it down a little bit, and then let's go back in time. So basically, you said to me, and I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but I want to put the words in your mouth because I want to hear you say it, about how you've learned so much during social isolation that it's changed you. So let me see if I teed you up properly.
Sure. You know, Michael, before this, my normal was just so crisscrossing the country, spread too thin. I'm doing the next thing. And it just felt like completely normal. But I always in my brain was thinking like, I can't wait for retirement. And I didn't know what retirement was, but I think my brain was saying, I can't wait to stop this routine that I'm in, this gerbil wheel that just doesn't seem to stop. It seems to actually be accelerating. When this first hit, COVID in March, and everything in my life kind of wiped out, because most of my business is from bringing people together, events, etc. And I just stepped back and I actually just realized, first of all, how incredibly burnt out I was. And then weird things started happening. Like, how do you distinguish 7 days, as you probably found? Like, what's the difference between Monday and Friday and Sunday? And so I started to do, like, I exercise Monday to Friday. I clean the house on Sunday. I don't have alcohol from Sunday to Thursday. Like, all these things that I sort of imposed on myself. And I loved it, the discipline. I actually said out loud to my partner and to my business partner, I haven't felt this way since the year before I won the Olympics, because I haven't had such a regimented, disciplined routine that's pretty ordinary. You know, the thing about winning the Olympics or doing great in sport is you see the public moment, but you don't see the thousands of hours like boring back and forth in a pool. And to do that, you have to go every day. There's just this consistency to it. And so crisscrossing the country and bouncing all around, half the job was just getting there. I was always in motion, always busy. And so stopping, adding some discipline, it's been incredible. I love it. I feel like kind of alive, like I haven't felt for a long time. And it's made me decide if and when the world gets back to normal, I will choose a different lifestyle going forward.
Wow. You know, you and I were talking before, and that's exactly what you just said was what I wanted you to say, because I think it's the pressure was on. You're going, oh my God, is this it? Is this it? But what you said, I think will create thought in people, because I call it the funeral thinking. And let me explain what it is. You're sitting there and you're at a funeral and you're listening to a eulogy and you're thinking, right? And you go, why am I living the life I'm living? Why do I let little things bother me? You know, that whole sort of thought. Mm-hmm. And you decide, I'm going to change. You know what? Because I'm going to be in the ground, or I'm going to be in ashes sometime. So why waste it, and why worry about things that on that one day when I'm dying aren't going to make any difference? But the problem is it wears off. It's like this inoculation that lasts a week, and then before you know it, you're back to your old life. How do you insulate against that?
Well, I've actually changed my business structure so that, I mean, right now, because the industry I'm in is probably wiped out for 12 to 18 months at the best.
Okay, what is that industry?
I'm teaching. So bringing 20 people together in a classroom, tables of 5 people, groups, you know, that just isn't going to happen for a while. So we decided to really go virtually, right? To go online. We were 85% there already. But even if the live comes back, we've chosen to stay on the virtual because it means I can stay home. I don't have to travel. People can come to us instead of me going to them. So it flips the business model on its head. I'm in a luxury to be in a business where I can do that. Not everybody can, but I've decided consciously we're going to make that choice. I'm one of those losers that used to be like, I'm super elite, which was like, I have no life, right? It's the highest thing of Air Canada. It means you fly 100,000 points. And I'd be like, am I going to make super elite this year? It's September and I don't know. And it's like, wow, that life is gone for me now.
Yeah, just get an American Express card because they got their own lounges. So, you know, like,
much easier.
Yeah. So let's go back now. And one of the things I said I wanted to talk about was the word depression. Mm-hmm. By the way, I should tell folks, 1992 gold medalist and humanitarian, Mark Tewksbury, is with us. And if you think that there's a lot of warmth between us and affection between us, there is. We're buds, but like people that live lives like you and I have admitted we have lived in the past, you don't see people, right? You know, like there's just never enough time. So get ready when when things come back to normal. I'm coming to Calgary. Okay.
All right.
One of the things that I said, though, was I want you to tell me what you think depression feels like. And if you have experienced it, then tell me what it feels like from that perspective. But if you haven't, tell me then what you think it feels like.
Yeah, no, I have for sure. And I really feel for all people living with depression because I grew up with it early in my life. I grew up with it. I call it, I think it was situational in a big way for me. And I know for many people it's chemical. For me, it was very much, yeah, exactly. And so for me, it was really my own thinking and my own psychology, especially growing up different in a time where, you know, this gay thing, not to make light of it, but, you know, in 1978, growing up in the suburbs of Calgary, realizing I was different and seeing the reaction to people like me on a television show like Dynasty, which I know sounds ridiculous, but that is literally the only exposure I had. And Billy Crystal's character on Soap, like that's it for people like me back in that time. And Stephen Carrington would come on, and my dad would say like, "Oh, this is disgusting." You know, my parents would deplore the storyline, and so something happens in that moment. And for me, it was like, I'm disgusting. And that tape started. And it led to very, very severe depression, not attempted suicide, but many thoughts of suicide constantly. Because it happened so young, I was 13, 14. I know what it's like at that age to feel like there's just no solution. And so the only way out is death or suicide, or, you know, just will make it so much easier. And that was my go-to kind of safety mechanism. It was when things got bad, it was like, well, I could always kill myself. And that's a pretty depressed state of mind. That's a pretty sick, not weak state of mind. Yeah, so
it is. But
I understand the feeling.
Right, but you know what you just described there is you know I'm not sure I've heard it said exactly like that. I don't mean the circumstances and the dynasty, but I mean the idea that you could take some sort of comfort, not traditional comfort for sure, and the hope in your life was that if this gets worse, I can end my life. So your hopelessness actually led to hope, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's very confused. And it was very confusing for me for a long time. Yeah, I totally agree. I think you've captured it exactly. And to be perfectly honest, when I first met you, even in the late 1990s, when I lived in Toronto, I still had that thought. When the subway would come up, the TTC, every time the subway came, I thought of what it would be like to jump in front of that train. Not that I felt like doing it, but my brain constantly looked for avenues of ways that I could get out. And so that stayed with me, even though the intense depression that I felt in my teenage years left, the residue of those thoughts and that safety mechanism remained for a very long time. It was mid-30s before that left me.
You know, when you and I met, it would have been 1998, maybe 1999, somewhere around then. And that's when I got hit with my first real deep clinical severe depression. But I doubt you didn't know me before, so it's not like you had anything to measure it against, but guys like you in describing your situation, and guys like me in my situation, you get really good at showing people not what you feel, but what you think they want to see in you. So it's like I'm in this conversation with you, and I think, okay, what does Mark want to see in me? Oh, he wants to see happy me, and he wants to see smart ass me, and he wants to see. I'm not referring to how I feel right now, but that is a huge concern, because you look at the people around you and you want to be in tune with how they are mentally. But sometimes if they don't want you to know, you don't know.
And I think when you talk about depression, so I think about that same person that you're talking about that's trying to fit the situation. What does that person feel like when the door is closed and you're all by yourself? To me, that was depression. That was like when it all fell, and that heaviness, and I can let it all go, and the thoughts, and the loser, and the negativity, and yeah, for sure, Michael. And it made the being alone even more brutal.
Yeah. When you were talking about your own experience and, what you heard from your parents, and realizing that how they would see you, which forced you, I'm sure, deeper and deeper into the closet, right? You were living out the ramifications of coming out and saying, to your family that. My circumstances obviously are different, but that sense of not being able to be honest with the world around me certainly was a factor in my life. And it's weird, because it's not like I was ever ashamed of saying, hey, I got this illness called depression. I never feared what people would say, but still I never said it until one day on Off the Record. You and I are joking around about how you're not a professional sports fan. And that's why we had so much fun together, because it's way more fun to hang out with people that have different interests as you than the same interests as you. Have you heard of Stéphane Richer?
No.
No. Okay. So Stéphane Richer was a Montreal Canadian, and he was a guest on Off the Record in 2009. This was a year after I was coming off the worst year of my life, for sure, where I was so deep in the hole of depression. And Case, you're going to have to yell this, but what am I talking about now?
Depression.
What 2008, where? Marriott.
2008, Marriott Hotel Room 521.
That's pretty well it. 4 a.m. in the morning. I
sat on the edge of the bed.
Did you hear that? Sat on the edge of the bed. Yeah. So I had this profound moment where I sat on the edge of the bed, and I thought, I understand suicide. Not because I was a risk to myself, because I don't want to be the guy that takes a story and exaggerates it and inflates it. But I understood, because I was in so much pain for so long, that if I had to live like that for an extended period of time, eventually I would have come to I got to get out of here. And I bet you, as I was approaching that I would take comfort in the idea that I could end my pain. And I have a friend who told me this story, he or she, that she had thought about suicide because of her depression. I guess I gave away the gender there. Although we know gender is fluid, right? So maybe you don't know whether it's a he or she. So she said that when she made a plan to take her own life, she felt comfort, because it was like, okay, now I know that my pain is going to end. And she said she actually had like the happiest couple of months of her life as she was planning this. And eventually she failed to complete suicide, and, got help afterwards, and, has gone on to a difficult battle, but still happy that she's alive.
Wow. Hey, Michael, does anybody talk on your show or in your world a link between insomnia and depression?
Oh yeah, I mean, now cause and effect in which direction? Does insomnia cause depression, or does depression, one of the symptoms of depression, is it insomnia? Which way?
That's it. I think that's it. I'm realizing, because I grew up an insomniac. I could never sleep, but I think it's because that tape in my head that led me to be depressed. I couldn't stop it, and so it's like I would torture myself when I was awake, so I couldn't sleep.
Mark, it's you said the tape in your head. And what's amazing to me is that we have this illness called depression. And virtually everybody that has it thinks they're the only ones, right? But then you find out that virtually all of us, to some extent, feel exactly the same things. Now, we all have different lives, so they manifest themselves in different ways. But that tape in the head, if you talk to 100 people with pretty severe depression, they would all say, oh my gosh, it's like over and over again. I hear these thoughts. And I came to the conclusion that it's like you give all of your secrets, your vulnerabilities, the things that you fear the most, and you give them all because you think it's secret. And someone gives them to your worst enemy in the world. And then they climb into your head and they start repeating them back to you over and over again. You're not good enough. You know, you can't come out of the closet because people will dislike you because of it. I mean, obviously I hear different things, but we all hear that tape.
Yeah. And I guess what was really interesting in my lifetime is that my issue that was the kind of driving situation or circumstance has evolved. So I've gone from being on the wrong side of morality and being all these sort of negative things to being on the right side of morality. And I've seen it in my lifetime. My own journey, I guess, kind of mirrored that a little bit. And so as time has gone by and the world has been more accepting, I found my place in it. And subsequently, the tape in my head has changed. My feelings have changed. You know, I still understand depression, but I don't have the same heaviness that I used to have with depression. And I know that I'm fortunate that it wasn't chemical, you know, that I was able to sort of change. But even that change, Michael, even with society changing, took a really long time.
Yeah. And you know, you were saying that when I would have met you, you were living in Toronto, and that, you know, when you're on a subway platform, you know, as I found that story to be really, really quite chilling, right? And quite painful to hear from a guy that I care about. But when you think back to that time and how you felt, is that gone now? Is that?
Yeah. Because I was reminded of that feeling in Toronto recently, and I was like, wow, like that thought hasn't entered my mind in a subway for a long, long time. But I was able to tell my partner I've been with somebody for 12 years. And he never knew that. He'd never heard that story. He'd never heard that time in my life. For me, the change, and in fact, I still had to get out of Toronto. Like, it was at that point, I still wasn't finished my healing. And it was in Montreal, of all places. And I think part of it is French culture. So I felt way more anonymous. They're very open. Ironically, I was fine being a gay person. Anglophone was the problem. Gay was no problem at all. so because of that outside influence and being a change, I remember waking up. It was the most amazing day. I actually remember, Michael, going, holy shit, the tape is like, I didn't say I hate myself because I'm gay today. Oh my God, what? I forgot. How did that happen? And that was the beginning of the end of that.
When would that have been?
That was in 2002, 2003.
When you stood on the platform, no, actually, you would have started from the water. When you were in the water getting ready for your race, how healthy was your brain at that point? And one of the markers for depression, for instance, is the inability to focus and concentrate. But some people find that in certain circumstances, they can focus. It's like this one place where I can do it. Was that your one place?
It's a really interesting question, because I think I could always focus in performing mode. Let's put it that way. So whether that was swimming or even giving a 60-minute speech, I could get myself into performance mode, and it's almost like clockwork. And so my body knows physiologically what to do. In a speech, my brain knows, you know, which way to go. Reminds me a little bit of the documentary on Glenn Campbell, where he's got complete dementia, and he gets up there and he can still do his whole show because it's like muscle memory. And so I would agree with that. I think that I could, in a performance state, I was still very high functioning, but out of that state, it was not.
So the tape that was playing in your head in 1992, because in 1992, you were still in the closet, right?
Yeah, except I had one person, a coach, a woman, Debbie Muir, who I could be honest with. And so it for a moment in time, changed the tape for just that window where I felt like I could talk. And it was so incredibly cathartic to have another human being that knew my secret. It went away the minute I won the Olympics and I was on the cover of Time, and all of that suddenly was gone. But there was a moment. So my headspace was actually very positive going into Barcelona, because I would hear guys in the locker room saying, "Those fags," and instead of internalizing it, I would call Debbie and say, "Can you believe what they're doing?" and got it out. And as we know from mental health, that's one of the keys, is to start talking and get out of your head and find an ally, all that sort of stuff. So I was really lucky to have that little break before the Olympics.
So for a guy who had this tape playing over and over in his head saying, "Mark, you're no good. Mark, you're all of these things that you don't want to hear," right? Because the tape doesn't tell you things that would bother me. It tells you things specifically that would bother you. My question then would be, what were you hearing, in the time leading up to the 100-meter final? What were you, as you're getting in the water? Was it telling you you're not going to win, or?
No, it was super positive. So Debbie actually did an intervention with me. Debbie heard me talking, and my language was so negative. And she actually called me on it. She's like, "What's going on?" And that's when I had to when I started to turn the corner, share all that stuff with her, and came up with a script and very concrete action things to change that tape. It wasn't just like, "Oh, now everything's great." I had a tape of the day of the race of how I would feel, what I would think. And I read that every day for 3 months. So by the time the day came, it was just kind of on auto set.
I'm going to talk to Phil. Phil, is this possible? Can you cue up the tape that we did for Mark's race just before the announcer says it's going to come down to the final 5 meters or 5 meters to go? Is that possible, Phil? Yeah, you take your time, because I'm going to ask you a question pertaining to that. But I thought that given the fact it's a visual medium, that it might be cool to both see it and hear it. So it's when Phil tells me, okay, we'll go back to that. You say, I shouldn't say you say, it sounds like I don't believe you, but that you had found a way to calm that voice in your head to do the job that you had dedicated yourself to doing. From what age? Like when did you first do the backstroke?
So started at like 8 years old swimming, became a backstroker 10 or 11, became kind of national stream 13, 14. So this is 10 years of serious visualization, mental skills training that was applied to the Olympics.
For me, and you mentioned public speaking and speeches, I do a lot of that. And it's the best thing for me that I've ever done. Of all the things that I've done professionally, there's nothing that I enjoy more than getting on stage and talking about mental health. It's like all roads of my life added something to the Michael that gets up on the stage and talks about it. Professionally, I mean, this is what I've done all my life, right? And then I have this illness that has deprived me a lot in my life. And then I have the fact that I've had a career that gives me some platforms that other people wouldn't have. So like I'm up there, but on a bad day, which I still have, I hear the voice in my head, and the voice is telling me, why did you accept this job? These people are looking at you and they expect you to be funny, and they expect you to be lively, and they expect you to give them something from you that they can't get from others. And I'm sure as I'm going up there, even though I've done this, literally hundreds of times, I'm sure as I do it that I'm going to be a total failure. And I know, I mean, I've when I call home, my wife will say, "How'd you do?" And I will say, I'll be honest with her. I'll say, "That wasn't my best." Or I'll say, I killed it. Like I would never say that to anybody else. Okay, let's roll the tape now. This is, because I want to ask you the last 5 meters of this race. Let's watch it. Let's hear it. Roll it, Phil. Phil says, "I hope it's it." Oh, I don't. Okay, we can do that. I mean, that's the beauty of social media. Okay, you can play it from the top and just leave us, and we'll talk as we're going through it. So I get this over and over again, this voice that tells me, get out of there. And I've texted my daughter, for instance, not lots of times, but a few times where I've said, I'm going to be terrible. Help me. And she'll go, "No, you're not going to be terrible." Like, "Why would you be terrible?" And I'll go, "Because, I don't feel good." And I keep thinking it's just, and that kills me, right? Because first of all, it takes away all the pleasure and just spoils it. And then on those days, I realize I got to get up on the stage and really share.
Yeah. the cool thing is your topic allows you to share authentically in real time, right? Just to be very open about that.
Roll it, Phil.
I know that too, Michael. When I spoke for years, I've been 30 years of speaking. A long time, I can be saying one thing and there's another voice in my head at exactly the same time.
Rouse has phenomenal turning ability. He's out in front.
Okay, Phil,
Mark
just drop
has
down
to
the
play
level a
catch
little
up
bit,
again,
so
but
we'll
he's
talk
good
over
at
this.
that. He's
So yeah, it was pretty funny. I looked for this video, by the way, like all day long for kids swimming that looked like bad swimmers. Okay, bring it up now.
Here comes Mark Tewksbury.
There.
To the final 5 meters, Rouse and Tewksbury. It's gonna go to the wall, and on the wall, Tewksbury. He's done it. Olympic record.
Woohoo, 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 woohoo.
So I was going to ask you, first of all, what were you thinking? And this is a sports question. This is not a mental health question. But, you know, I'm a little bit of a Tewksbury groupie, especially today, having watched that. How aware are you of how close that race is? And the most important question that I want to ask you is, have you relived that and thought, okay, because it was bang, bang, right? Like you touched the wall. How much did you beat? Was Rouse, right? How much did you beat him by?
6 100ths.
6 100ths of a second, which I couldn't do it fast enough, right? Do you ever think, oh, how different your life would be if it was silver and not gold?
Oh yeah, all the time, for sure. And ironically, I was silver by 6 100ths at the World Championship, so I knew exactly what the silver was. Yeah, I mean, I often think if there is such a thing as karma or destiny or whatever, I think because of my sexuality and depression and the things that I need to talk about publicly and bring attention to, I think that somehow that 6 100ths made all the difference.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable when you think of like what the difference was and how different your life would be. It just, you know, you introduce someone as a silver medalist from the '92 Olympics, even though it's a massive achievement. I mean, let's face it. If you were 7 100ths of a second worse, you're still, you know, almost identically amazing, but it just doesn't sound as good. So you say you've had a partner for 12 years that you were with? Okay. So you should listen, as will I, because I've had a partner for a lot longer, and we're actually enjoying, you know, being face-to-face the way we have. But this is Dr. Julie Goldenson, you know, who's been giving us tips on if it's not going that well, you know, some of the things to look out for. And this is like, it's not totally serious from the standpoint that if you're in an abusive relationship, this is not advice for you. But if you're just going, oh God, you know, give us some tips, here it is. So take a peek and we'll talk afterwards. This is Julie. Roll it, Phil. Love saying that.
Pandemic Survival, a limited series from Isolation Nation. This week, from soulmate to cellmate, how to help your marriage survive. Hit it, Sean.
She's Julie Goldenson. Julie Goldenson. If you're in the market for a psychologist, Julie G is the top of the list. Yeah.
Pandemic, COVID-19, isolation, social distancing. You know, for a lot of us, it's actually there's an upside to it, right? More time at home, more time together. But sometimes more time together can lead to places that maybe are not the best thing for us. Dr. Julie Goldenson is a forensic and clinical psychologist, a board member of the Ontario Psychological Association, and also part of the OPA's Disaster Response Network COVID-19 Task Force. How you doing, Julie?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Okay, Doc, here's the deal. You mentioned communication a few times so far. Should couples be concerned if they're arguing more than usual, or is that to be expected?
It's a great question, and in a second I'll distinguish the difference between bickering, arguing, and fighting dirty and abuse. So I think there's a spectrum, so we need to hold that in mind. But I think we have to realize that we've got a pretty nasty cocktail of things going on right now. We've got forced togetherness with few buffers. We've certainly got uncertainty when it comes to our health and our economics. Right, I'm supposed to keep this light, so this will be the only sort of like downer part.
Yeah.
We've got anxiety and fear and a fair bit of cabin fever going on. And for some, an exponentially heavier workload with homeschooling and working. And for others, job loss, which creates financial insecurity and in some case, a shift in self-esteem, a shift in identity, and a lot of fears for the future. So understandably, a lot of us are not our best selves right now. So it makes good sense that there would be more tension and potentially more arguing.
So the question is, I mean, you've just pointed out something that a lot of us are going, yeah, you know what, you're right. But now you need to give us some tips based on your own expertise on navigating conflict.
Sure, I'd be happy to. As I said before, we need to distinguish sort of the degree of the conflict. If people are being really disrespectful and fighting dirty, and it's sort of like the War of the Roses over there. Have you seen that movie?
I have seen that movie.
I'm aging myself here. Then people might need some help, and couples therapy via, video is probably less than ideal, but might be better than nothing. If there's any sort of violence or intimidation, that's a whole other ball of wax, and that definitely requires immediate intervention. But if it's normal bickering and just more tension, I think that first we need to normalize and expect it. Discord does not mean we're doomed. We don't have to catastrophize. That just means our challenges are understandably magnified. I think we can hold our situation in mind and forgive readily and often, but that doesn't mean we have carte blanche to be jerks. There will be situations that need resolution. In that case, I do have a few concrete pointers. The first applies, during COVID or any time. Sometimes it's better to strike when the iron is cold or at least cool, because often we don't have the bandwidth to hear each other when we're really worked up. I think we need to calm down a little bit before we can really get each other's perspectives. And sometimes this is hard because many of us sometimes just want to be right. But I think we can try to approach each other with humility, curiosity, and respect. And that will lead to a much better outcome than approaching each other with too much certainty or stubbornness. Because once we start needing to be right, we're not really in a good place to hear each other. And finally, I think sense of humor is really important. We have to be able to laugh at ourselves and sometimes gently laugh at each other.
Right. I think the key word there is gently. If somebody took that out of context, it'd be great. Oh, you get to laugh at your partner. That's a good solution. No. These are really, really good tips. I'm sort of nodding my head through the whole thing. Good job. And I love the way you took metaphors and you kind of mixed them. You took one from 1,000 years ago, like strike when the iron is cold, which is a play off of strike when the iron is hot. And then you talked about bandwidth. So you've taken the past and the present and put them together with great advice. Thanks for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think she's good. It's useful and needed information for a lot of people at this time because, this is just dragging on. And like you and I have already established the fact that neither one of us has anything to complain about. If you have your job, well, I guess you don't have your job the same way, but if you're getting by, then you're way better off than a lot of people. So hopefully there was something useful there to extend your relationship from 12 years to 13 years.
And beyond.
And beyond. Well, you got to take it 1 year at a time. So thank you for sharing your story, which, afterwards we, on the show, we all chat about, what points to pick out that we can now take this and shrink it down into 2 minutes or 3 minutes, which is an easier bite for people on social media. I don't know how I would cut this down. You really screwed us over here, Mark, because, if you give one good point and it's 20 seconds long, it's all really easy. But, there's a whole bunch of things in there that A, I didn't know about you, and B, I learned a lot about myself from hearing you talk about yourself.
Amazing, Michael. And listen, so glad to see you and so proud that you're doing this work. It's really awesome. And you're a great, great ambassador, and keep it up.
Thank you. And you too. And that beard is all fresh, right? It's all COVID-19.
It will be groomed tomorrow for the first time. So, I could have done it, but it's exciting. The barbers are open here in Alberta. I'm not sure though. I think I have to wear a mask. So we'll see what the hell happens.
Yeah, that could be an ugly look. Mark, what the hell happened? He went, I was wearing a mask. What can I say?
I know, they forgot.
You know what? Right there, that shot, you smiling, it's nice. Good to see you, man. And you know, people on TV or radio or social media, they often say, you know, really, you know, hey, I love you, man. But I mean, the truth is, I probably said it and didn't mean it, but I mean it today.
I know you do, Michael. I mean it back.
We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, Case, who's on the show tomorrow?
Amanda Crew.
Amanda Crew. You ever watch Silicon Valley, the show?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. She's the woman that kind of played both sides. She was with the guys in, you know, like in their company. Yeah. She's a Canadian woman from Vancouver, and she was one of our first guests. So this is show number 40 today. And yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just a labor of love, but also of just like, this is what I want to do with my life. So it's great when you get a chance. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Pleasure. Good luck tomorrow.
Mark Tewksbury, 1992 gold medalist by 6/100ths of a second. And we will, well, hopefully COVID-19 doesn't last that much longer, but if it does, we'll be calling. We'll see you tomorrow on Isolation Nation.
Ciao.